Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to After the Snap, and I am your host here, Tasha Pierce. And I know you can't see me, but I do want to put my social medias up so that anybody that's not following me on social media can go ahead on and follow if they like. What's going on, Reinhardt? Good to see you, sir. Welcome, Marge, part of my mod squad. Welcome. And I guess I better show my face in the place. What's happening, y'all? So today, and we're gonna jump right in and we ain't even gonna wait around for the lollygaggers. They catch me on the replay. We're gonna jump right in because today is a very special episode. And the reason why we're doing this episode is we're gonna dive into a situation or a topic that we don't typically dive into, but it's because of a very sincere question asked by one of the members of my Discord. And by the way, if you want to join the Discord, you can look in the description box of this video. You will see a link to my link tree that's got all the places that you can find me. Okay. So if you guys, I had a member of my Discord who shall not be named unless they want to be named. They can name themselves, who asked the question very sincerely. And while they were given an answer that was actually very good for the times that we're in, there is a storied history behind the word woke. Besides the dictionary definition that we know as the state of being awake or the state of being aware, we know that dictionary definition. But the term started off one way and has turned into something extremely different. And you guys know I'm a bit long-winded, so I can't just sit here and say it. So we're going to do a whole little presentation about what woke means and why I'm so disgusted by where it has come to. Okay, so you guys, my gratuitous hyping of myself is going to be over. Oops, I guess I better click on that. We're going to talk about what woke is. And probably to everybody in the audience, woke would probably mean something different to each one of us. So there are people who claim to be kind of experts. In fact, there is a lady, Bethany. Let me see. I gotta get her name here. Bethany Mandel, I believe her name is, who wrote a book. And I gotta find it. Stolen Youth. That's the name of her book. And it is Stolen Youth: How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. So she says, this is from Goodreads, so this is not me, my opinion of what she's saying. This is what she says. American children are facing a crisis unlike any in human, their very extinction. I'm sorry, that's what's written here. I'm not making this up. American children are facing a crisis unlike any in human, their very extinction. Every day, thousands of American kids are being robbed of their youth as they are converted into foot soldiers for an aggressive agenda of woke politics, while parents watch in horror or resigned indifference. The insidiousness of wokeism is a phenomenon most American parents never really fully realize. Yet these ideas pervade children's minds because of the woke narrative ever present in society. In this book, Bethany Mandel and Carol Markowitz present data about the impact of wokeism on childhood and give parents tools to identify how wokeism has encroached in their lives. So we start talking about wokeism. We start talking about an author who wrote a total book on how to eradicate wokeism. So I think that we should go to Bethany for one of the, I guess, a good definition for what wokeism means to her.
Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that This is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define.
So wait a minute. Did you guys hear that, by the way? Let me know if you were able to hear the clip in the chat. So I want to make sure we were giving Bethany all of the shine that she needed to have to explain what wokeism meant to her. So if she did not come across, then I don't mind playing it again. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna play it again anyway, because Bethany, I'm so disappointed, girl. I'm so disappointed.
Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define.
So woke is something that is very hard to define. We hear it a lot. We hear the word constantly. It's like somebody has to know what the fucking word means, right? We can't just keep saying woke and nobody knows what it means. That makes no sense. So let's go on and see.
Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure.
Definition of the word woke.
So far, the only person to define what woke actually is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Late last year, his staffers were asked to define woke in court. His communications director defined woke as a slang term for activism, progressive activism. His general counsel added that woke is the belief that there are systemic injustices in American society and the need to address them.
So, Ron DeSantis and his team have a meaning for the word woke. And it actually doesn't sound very bad now, does it? It actually doesn't sound like anything to be afraid of at all, does it? So we're going to just move on, because I know, we need to know exactly what woke means. And I think our next slide can give it to us.
So far, the only person
I got to get past here we are. We got a new slide, and this is going to tell us exactly what woke means.
The word woke, when used as a political term, refers to a perceived awareness of issues concerning social justice and racial equality, according to Wikipedia's entry on the subject. The article further reports that this use originated in the United States and derives from the African American vernacular English expression "stay woke," the form of which conveys a continuing awareness of these issues. The Oxford English Dictionary defines woke as alert to injustice in society, especially racism. The Cambridge English Dictionary defines woke as aware, especially of social problems such as racism and inequality.
That's about as good a definition as any for the term woke. Again, it don't sound like it's anything to be afraid of. So why are people using the word woke in a way that makes it seem like it's something negative? Well, as the gentleman said in the previous slide, it started the term "stay woke" and using the word woke to have a heightened awareness to injustices started within the Black or African American vernacular English, if you want to call it that, community. And it started way back in the civil rights movement. The term woke originally emerged during the civil rights era, embodying the awareness and activism surrounding racial injustice and inequality. So basically, there was no social media. There was no cameras coming out every second where you can just hold the camera up and record what a person is doing. What we had was each other in the civil rights movement. So when we told one another in the civil rights era to stay woke, that means keep your head on a swivel. You have to know not only what's going on around you, but what's going on around your neighbors? Because we had ops. This is not to say that there was nobody out there who was helping Black people. This is to say that when your enemy at that time were white racists, KKK members, and the such, when we know that they're white, everybody white could potentially be an issue. So keep your head on a swivel. Not only watch your house, you got to watch the house next door. You got to watch down the street. We have to do a whole neighborhood watch to make sure that our families are safe and secure. You have to stay woke. Everybody can't sleep at the same time. It was a rallying cry. And it has turned into something that is kind of a farce in itself. I hate the fact that it's a word that meant so much to our ancestors, to my predecessors, even my parents. I'm 51. I have to think about that every time I get ready to say it. I always want to give myself 52. I'm not 52 yet. I'm 51. So that means that my parents were around not only during the civil rights movement, but before. And they could, when they were living, they could remember a time when things weren't as safe and they didn't have it as good as we have it right now. This is not to say that there's still not work to be done, but this is to say that I'm one generation removed from families having to have the attitude of stay woke. There was absolutely nothing negative in the African-American community about using stay woke. But you're saying, Tasha, you're going back 50 years. Marge called me a youngster. You're going back 50, 60 years, Tasha. You know, the word is going to evolve. Of course, the word is going to evolve. It evolved from the 1950s and 60s all the way down to the Black Power movement in the 1960s and 70s. It still meant the same thing, but it was a rallying cry to a different generation. And that generation was the Black Power movement. But before we move to the Black Power movement, I am going to flip. I'm going to flip to my next slide here. Thanks, Clarence. Thanks, David, for being here. Old enough to know better, but young enough to try, right? So, yeah, during the civil rights movement, activists were described as woke for their heightened awareness and dedication to fighting racial injustice. I still fail to find the negative in that. But of course, we start a term, and I'm not trying to shit on all white people or people of different ethnicities, because it's not just the Black community. We start a term, and then it's co-opted to mean something different. Or we start something and we make it cool, and then later on you start to see other people using it until the meaning is diluted. And this is the situation with the word woke. So we're talking about the civil rights movement. Let's just hear what some people have to say about that. Well, I went too far.
The heading of woke. That's a term dating back to the 1940s when Black Americans referred to being woken up to injustice. But that history has largely been lost on current day leaders, such as, for example, our former president.
And I don't like the term woke because I hear woke. You know, it's like just a term that use half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is.
So we've heard him use it. Donald Trump, and this is not me trying to tell you who to vote for, none of that shit, none of that. We hear former President Donald Trump use the term woke over and over and over again. This was an opportunity for him to define the word woke. He just tells us he doesn't like it. He don't like the word, but why? That's the question. Why? And it's usually because people fear what they don't understand. And there was a period of time, especially during the civil rights era and the Black Power era, where they didn't want us to know this stuff. They didn't want us to know how much power we had. And when people started checking and figuring out how much power Black people had, you started to see movements against, counter movements against the Black Power movement, against the civil rights movement. And the case in point would be Martin Luther King. Case in point would be not just his assassination, but I guess the campaign that the FBI, John Edgar Hoover, what he had against, he was out for Martin Luther King, sent because we know we don't get to choose our leaders. You know, we do. Martin Luther King was a great leader, but he was a flawed man, and he was involved with a lot of infidelity in his marriage. And the FBI recorded Martin Luther King while he was involved in his infidelities, sent that tape of those recordings to his wife, and they said, we're going to release this tape everywhere if you don't kill yourself. And that's not just something we think. That's something that we know. The fear of Black people recognizing their power was so great that the head of the FBI threatened Martin Luther King and told him to kill himself. That's the truth. So this is another situation where it's like, stay woke. You got to know, you got to realize that if they hate you that much, what won't they do to you if you don't have your eyes open? And not just you, everybody around you. Everybody around you has to be vigilant. The same situation we have with some of our other Black leaders during the Black Power movement. So with the rise of the Black Power movement, woke expanded to include a broader sense of social and political consciousness. It emphasized pride and empowerment within the African American community. It's a whole lot of stuff I could just sit here and spit. We ain't got all day, but I'm going to tell you some of our Black Power movement heroes in that era were, of course, Malcolm X, who started off as a member of the Nation of Islam, but then he advocated for self-defense and Black empowerment later. We had Angela Davis, a scholar, an author, an activist. She was known for her involvement in the Black Panther Party and her advocacy for prisoners' rights. And she remains a prominent voice on issues of race and gender justice. We had Stokely Carmichael. He was a leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and later the Black Panther Party. He popularized the term Black Power. Huey P. Newton was co-founder of the Black Panther Party. We know that that there were some shenanigans involved in their deaths. So Bobby Seale, Fred Hampton, Assata Shakur, Eldridge Cleaver. These are all key members of the Black Panther Party. He wrote books, Eldridge Cleaver did, called Soul on Ice, and it contributed to the intellectual side of the movement. So there's the philosophical side of the movement, and then there's this action side of the movement. Well, Eldridge Cleaver was more on the side of the philosophical. You had Fred Hampton, Stokely Carmichael, Assata Shakur, all on the like kind of action. It was so much action back then that staying woke meant not only, again, being proud and being strong, but also taking care of those around you. It was a case where the Black Panther Party started an initiative in neighborhoods where if you were poor, you were having problems feeding your children, you could come to a central place within these neighborhoods. And through donations of goods, services, and money, they were able to put together packages to feed the women, infant, and children in these neighborhoods. And it was called Women's, Infants, and Children. And that was such a great idea that it got co-opted by the federal government. And even still today, we have WIC, which is Women, Infants, and Children. So if you ever went to get some assistance in the US, if you ever went and got assistance, you can thank the Black Panthers for coming up with the initiative, and that initiative being co-opted by the federal government. Became women, it became what we know as WIC today, started with them. And they started it because people were hungry. People needed stuff and they were being discriminated against. So they said, well, if you'll discriminate against us and won't feed our women, our infants, and our children, we'll feed them ourselves. And that is how that started. Again, this is from becoming woke, becoming aware of not just the situation or the plight of one person, but of all the people around you. And when you start, and I don't know about other people, I can only speak for me. When you start looking beyond your own nose and seeing what other people's issues are, then you become, you will either be complicit in just sitting and watching these people struggle, or you will become activated. And that's what happened with these men. Were they always right? Did they always do everything right? No. That also is something that you have to look at when you start to say the word woke, because the word woke in 2024 sometimes doesn't have room for a person to be anything but one thing. We all have to be like-minded. There were a group of people who all thought differently in that era, and they were able to accomplish so much by being forgiving of the flaws of the other people. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. I'm going to pick up, pick up some comments here. David says, his militant Democrat friend swears he's woke, but couldn't define it. Most people can't. And some people don't even try. I think I got another clip coming where some people don't even try. Marge says she didn't know it went back to the 40s. I wonder if the term can be found in music. It can. It can be found in some music, but do I have some specifics right now? No. But it can be found in music. I'm pretty sure Reinhardt is in this conversation. He might have already answered that question. David said infidelity doesn't negate a voice of justice and reason. Doesn't. You can be an infidel as far as infidelity within a marriage and be a good person to everybody else, but be a bad husband. Just like I could sit here and talk all day. I'm a horrible housekeeper. Does that make me a horrible person? No, I'm a horrible housekeeper. Marge said that's how dangerous Dr. King was to the U.S. administration. Exactly. He was dangerous because he'll make you, he made you think about the way that people were being treated, not just Black people, because it started with Black people. But then you can start to say, well, no, it's not just Black people, it's poor people, it's immigrants. And then when those people all got in line with one another, you overthrow the status quo. If the status quo is not right, if it's not for everybody, then it might need some overhauling. This is not to say to throw away the entire system. This is to say overhaul what's there. And that's very scary for the people who are in power. Not just white people, white, rich people. If you're not a male, if you're not rich, if you're not white, and if you're any of those things, you're closer to the status quo. So there are some rich Black men who are very, very threatened by people getting on the same page and realizing, hey, wait a minute, it's not white against Black. It's not heterosexuals versus the LGBTQ. It's not this or that. It's the poor people who are being oppressed by the rich. Well, the closer we get to getting that in our minds, the closer we are to a revolution. James Baldwin, another fantastic example, especially given that he's not only Black, he was in the LGBTQ community before it was cool, before you could be out and proud. And he was still out, but it was more dangerous for him back then for him to be out. So, yep. Breakfast for kids. Not only just the breakfast for kids, like we still, for the children here, they still get WIC. So my grandson and granddaughter will get WIC. They get peanut butter. They get fruit, fresh fruit. They get bread, milk, eggs, stuff like that. So healthy stuff to not, you can't live off of it, but it is a huge crutch for people who are marginalized in a marginalized community. So David says, to the ingrained WASPs at the time, they were threatened by integration and ignorant. And this is true. I knew we were going to come to some Reinhardt. The sad thing is they've taken something from the Black community that started out as a positive thing and transformed it into something negative. This is very true. He also said, I'll be honest, the way the word is used today, it's almost like it's used as a slur. That kind of encompasses a lot of things. So instead of saying the actual words, they'll just say woke. Exactly. And David is agreeing. Okay, so we've covered the 1940s or the 1950s, 60s, 70s. Here comes my era. I don't know how many of y'all remember, but we had a resurgence in kind of our Black power movement, and it was in the 90s. The hip hop not woke, I won't call them activists. The hip hop culture began to embrace the woke term, and it gained traction, reflecting a heightened awareness of social issues and systemic challenges faced by marginalized communities. So hip hop artists like Public Enemy incorporated the term into their lyrics, encouraged listeners to stay woke to the challenges faced by the African American community in that day. And it revitalized our youth, went to the point where the same summer that we were all rocking Batman t-shirts and all the Batman merch, because that 1989 Batman came out, that same summer we had Spike Lee. 1989's the number, another summer. Do the Right Thing. We had School Days. We had a lot of media presence around Wake Your Ass Up. Marge brought it up in our Discord, how much she loves Spike Lee. Spike Lee was a huge part in bringing it back. And we spent that summer, we spent maybe the next 2 years. 1989, I might have been a junior. I graduated. I was a sophomore. So in 1989, I was about to be a junior. We were rocking bamboo earrings, dashikis, poofies. We had the African fight to power medallions we were rocking. We was rocking wooden bead necklaces. We was just red, black, and green, everything, right? So we were excited again. It's a very scary thing when people who've kind of had we kind of forgot this. When we start to re-embrace it, and it was because of hip hop. And we can say that, hip hop was a huge catalyst, and there were a lot of positives. There were some negatives too. But as far as bringing back around the term woke and being woke, we spent our summer waking up. Now, there were times that, there were times that we should have been leaving things alone. So we had Sister Soldier. We also had Scheherazade Ali. And I don't know how many people read Scheherazade Ali's books. I did. because I was just trying to get my hand on anything that was kind of embracing the culture. And so, like I said, there was some good stuff out there, and there was some bad stuff out there, and it was depending on what you got your hands on. But you can't know what you don't agree with if you don't listen to the other side. I always feel like if I don't hear what they have to say, then I can't, there's no debate, there's no arguing, because I don't even know I don't know what I'm not giving them a chance. Well, I gave Scheherazade Ali a chance. And it was bad. But again, we still keeping the same term woke. It's still meaning the same thing. We've gone all the way from the 40s, 50s, 60s. We're now in the 80s and 90s. And when things started making a change was kind of in the later 90s. Saw a resurgence of activism with movements about anti-globalization protests, environmental activism, contributing to a renewed focus on social issues. So it started turning from, this is something that Black people use as a rallying cry, as a reminder of remember where we were from, and let's not let that happen again. Then it turned into, hey, we're taking steps back socially, period. We don't want globalization. We don't want climate change and the such. The HIV, when people, that movement, all of that was in that same era. And people started to band together and rally around those things. But the word, the sentiment of the word still held, even though it had kind of started the co-opting of and bringing it over into mainstream slang. That started happening in the 90s, but it still meant something positive. Eyes open, head on a swivel, look at what's going on around you. These people, there are people marginalized here and there, and we need to be saving this earth for our future children. And all of these things, these social issues were still something positive. It was nothing negative about woke or being woke, environmental issues, human rights issues. They were praised for staying woke to the pressing problems of the time. So, of course, same era, like I said, we had Public Enemy, we had KRS-One, we had Run DMC, we had a Tribe Called Quest, NWA. Even though they were problematic, we still had NWA. We had De La Soul, Common, Queen Latifah. How does she get down this from this list? And the Wu-Tang again, they had their street conversation, and then they also had the philosophical side. When you start talking about the RZA and the GZA, it was philosophy and social issues. So yeah, so everything's still wonderful, right? It all still means something pretty positive. Oh my gosh, if I could find some pictures of my 89 summer, I will. A lot of things are lost to time, though, but if I could find some, I will post them. I know where one picture is, but David said dashikis were beautiful. I bought some from my wife at the time. You just reminded me. Beautiful, beautiful things. I still got at least one dashiki. Dave says grunge music was an unrecognized part of this the 90s resurgence of activism. And you are 100% correct, because I'm looking at it from one lens. You correct, because that would have been around the era of the Seattle scene of grunge music. And was can't remember who all was part of that. There was one grunge artist who was killed, and I mean, I think it wasn't one of those like a suicide. It was somebody who was murdered, and she was a rising grunge artist, and I cannot remember her name. But yeah, in that era, exactly. Wu-Tang Clan, girl, the Wu-Tang. Marge, you showing me, you know some things. But yeah, So, you know, like we said, RZA, Jizza, they was about to hit you with the philosophy. You're going to think a little bit messing with them. And that's what I loved about them, KRS. I loved the philosophical side. Of course I did, because that's why I always lean toward those philosophical conversations now, because that was my music of that era. So yeah. Reinhardt said, you're absolutely right, David. All those bands were many anti-establishment, or at the very least, there was something wrong with the establishment, right? Soundgarden, can't remember the girl's name. I can't remember her name either. Rage Against the Machine, even though they're not technically grunge, but still anti-establishment. System of a Down. Now, I don't know when they started, but System of a Down, another one. You know, so yeah, it was a time where it wasn't just us waking up. It seemed like it was a national awakening, especially with the younger crowd. And we're seeing that kind of happen again now, where the younger people are having their own awakening. And some people find that to be a negative thing. We're going to go back to this. What does woke mean? Because I do want to hit. It was System of a Down. Okay. Came out probably late 90s. It was. Got you. Chris Cornell. I don't know. Mia Zapata. Was that her name? Mia Zapata? I think that is. Let me look her up, though, real quick. Yeah, because it was effed up that way she went. Yeah, that's her. That's her. Mia Zapata. In that same era. Yep, the 90s. Chris Cornell was your friend, David. Yep, and Justin is giving me 1993 for Mia Zapata's death. But again, anti-establishment, that grunge scene out of that Seattle area. I remember the era. Let's see what we're going to go into the secondary part of woke.
Over time, however, the meaning of woke has shifted so that the word has come to suggest a sarcastic version of what it originally meant. Indeed, according to the Urban Dictionary, woke means the state of being pretentious about how much you care about a social issue. Those who would broadly consider themselves woke have been criticized for their sending of occasional Twitter tweets calling for social and racial justice, but never making concrete efforts toward effecting lasting change. To summarize, some people say that being woke indicates awareness of social issues, while others deploy the term as an insult.
It's kind of scary how he got to the end and got all extra happy, huh? But what he's saying is the truth. We started to see it change in the social media era. Why did we start to see it change in the social media era? Because social media is scary to people who are used to things going one way. You can get a message out extra loud, extra fast to far more people with the advent of social media. And we started to see the rise of the hashtags or hashtag activism. So the advent of social media brought woke into mainstream conversations. Online activism and discussions about social justice amplified its usage, but it also led to some polarization and criticism. So we saw Me Too, Never Again, Love Wins, Black Lives Matter, Resist. All of those things started to move the word woke into these more mainstream conversations, and it opened the word and the people involved in that type of activism up to a world of scrutiny. But I think it would be remiss if I didn't talk about some of these young activists from the social media sphere. gosh, let me get to my list down here. So they included online discussions and social media platforms becoming spaces for individuals to share information and opinions, leading to the term woke being used more widely in digital conversations. But in digital conversations, even though these are some very real people who are really out here doing the work, the people who are being critical of you can hide behind their keyboards. So the digital conversations become more and more like digital attacks because it's so very easy. If you do not agree with what somebody is saying, it is so very easy to just keep it moving on social media. But it's also hard because nobody will ever know it was you if you just type this ugly little comment, or at least at one time, and now it's catching up to their ass. You can't sneak this nowadays, but in the beginning, you could sneak this on social media, and you can say some very ugly things about people, and nobody would have a clue about, one way or the other who that was. Well, now, again, they have whole detective agencies on social media. They will find you. They are like Liam Neeson from Taken. But we have D. Ray McKeeson, who is the co-founder of Campaign Zero. He's an activist and organizer who used social media to discuss issues related to police brutality, racial inequality, and social justice. And if you take a look at this photo, he is the only biological male there, the only one. Lovey is right next to him to his left. A Nigerian American author and activist, Lovey uses her platform to address social issues, encourage civic engagement, and promote conversations around justice and equality. Then Alicia Garza is one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. Alicia Garza utilizes social media to amplify the voices of marginalized communities and advocate for racial justice. Malala Yousafzai, and I know I'm not saying her name, Malala, that's how I know her. She is the youngest ever Nobel Prize laureate. She advocates for girls' education globally. Her social media presence helps amplify her message of empowerment and equality. Tarana Burke is the founder of the Me Too movement. Tarana Burke uses social media to continue the conversation around sexual assault awareness, survivor support, and societal change. Jamila Jamil is an activist and an actress. Jamila Jamil is known for her advocacy work around body positivity, mental health, and inclusivity. Patrice Coolers, co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement, a vocal advocate for racial justice, LGBTQ plus rights, and prison reform. Monroe Bergdorf, an activist and model. Monroe Bergdorf addresses issues of racism, transphobia, and LGBTQ rights, plus her or all of this through her social media platform. And then Emma Gonzalez is a survivor of the Parkland school shooting. She became an advocate for gun control and uses her social media presence to push for legislative change. So the kids are out here representing. Kids are out here representing, but they're not being appreciated for doing so in some circles. They feel like, or some people in some circles feel as if these people speaking out, these people fighting for different causes, but all under the umbrella of social justice, that they are a threat to individuality, we'll say. It's like, oh, these people, they're trying to take our ability to be individuals away. Or they're trying to weaken this agenda or that agenda. I feel like, especially Black people, if you're having issues with women's rights, if you're having issues with LGBTQ rights, you just look to your parents and your grandparents, your great grandparents, depending on how old you are, and you'll see that once upon a time, that was your ass. You were fighting. And now that you're in a position, you're just a little tiny bit better than your position is just a little tiny bit better than the LGBTQ plus people or women's rights people with who are still fighting for the steps that we've taken backwards with women's rights. If you're Black and you're doing that, you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. Because once upon a time, it was you. And then you finally have gotten to where you think that you have a leg up on somebody, anybody, and you're going to treat them the way you were once treated. Such an ugly, ugly thing. And it takes a little bit of thinking and growing up to get past that. But we need to get past that. Those people, as long as they are not hurting you personally, what does their life, what they're doing over there? Why is it so horrible to you that you want an entire agenda against them? That's terrible to me. And those are beautiful young people, very, very beautiful young people. Let me see. The world has become more integrated because of social media, showing people's lives and eliminating the unknown boogeyman factor. But it's also been a platform for spreading lies and hate. Yep. And I mean, we're going to come to another slide, and I don't know if it's the next one, where they truly feel attacked. And of course, I'm using politicians because those are the people that we see the most often are politicians spouting this anti-woke stuff. We hear them the loudest, and then, that whole dog whistle goes out to their constituents or their supporters, and then it floods social media with all this ugliness, and it becomes a battle. I'm not fighting battles. I'm not going to fight a battle. My thing is this. What I'm doing over here, you can do what you want. Just don't hurt anybody. What I'm doing over here is going to try to be uplifting, because once upon a time, one generation away from me, things were not lovely for my people. And I'm going to remember it. And I'm going to try to make sure it don't happen again. And if we start taking rights here and there from other people, it won't be long before some of our rights are the ones that's being taken. Reinhardt said, Tasha, that's been around for a while. There are certain people that will sacrifice anything to be accepted in certain spaces. No matter how toxic that space is, they want to be in it. I agree. And some might even say, should I say it? This is a safe space for me to say some BS, right? Some might even say that when Black people fought through civil rights, way back in the civil rights era, it was for, we want to be equal. But to some Black people, being equal only meant being able to do things and go places that white people went to and frequented. So you started to see in the 70s, you started to see Black businesses, Black culture, the stuff that we did that to make it all the way up to the 60s through the civil rights movement, we stopped doing it. We started trying to be more like the oppressor. And here we are. We've lost a lot of our culture. We went to sleep. We didn't stay woke in that era. And it set us back as a people. So I had to put that out there, because Reinhardt made a point that, and a hit dog will holler. So I felt like it kind of hit us. We will do anything in our power to get into this toxic space and we will fight tooth and nail to get there, when we should have just been fighting for the equality, but kept not segregated, but still kept an eye on our own instead of letting our stuff kind of fall to the wayside. But that's me. Clarence says, yes, let people live. Ultimately, we are all human. No one should want to see anyone marginalized. That makes sense. It should be, it should hurt, you know, and I know that I've said it before. I feel too much sometimes, but it hurts to see people in pain, or like my friend and I were talking, and this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it does a little bit. Like I just started feeling about for Luther Vandross, because it has always been rumored, it has never been substantiated, I don't think, that Luther Vandross was gay. And I was just, the other day, it might have been a week or two ago, I just started crying, thinking about how horrible it must have been to sing love songs and to be a person, and the first person you think about when you hear, or, you know, when you start talking about love songs in the 80s, the first person you think about is Luther Vandross, and he could never openly display love. And for some reason, that just broke my heart. I cried, literally cried, because he passed away not being able to show the world, whoever it was, be it a man, woman, whoever it was, be it a man and a woman, I don't know. You know, they say the same thing about Whitney Houston. I don't know how true any of these things are, but if that was the case, it's a hurtful thing. But anyway, Marge, you are such a bad influence, but I said it anyway. David said, we can't force others to accept our beliefs or knowledge. All we can do is be good examples. By being the best people we can be, maybe confused people might find a proper path. And yes, Marge, that's exactly what I mean. Fight for political equality. Fight for social equality. Keep your culture. Don't let go of the way we were doing things. Because now it seems very odd to people that, oh, you're a grandmother. All you want to do, you know, sit around and watch them grandkids. That's the way it was. Once upon a time, yeah. When the younger people started having children and they retire, or they start taking care of mama, because mama was taking care of the grandchildren. That's the way things kind of used to go. It was like old Black women working just wasn't normal. And I'm not saying that just because this is the way we choose to do things over here makes it all lovely. But I am saying that it's not. That's how things used to be. Used to take care of whole families. Used to take care of one another. Used to have the cleaners that was owned by sister so-and-so, and we used to go to church, and you didn't have no choice but to go to church. And the church was not just there to rake in money. The church was there to help the community. And it's so much. But again, we went to sleep. We didn't stay woke on that. And that's why our communities are so divided now. Yeah. Reinhardt says, there are so many people out here preaching negativity, but you know what's beautiful? As I want to see everybody prosper, I want to see everybody have the same rights. I don't care who they are. Absolutely. And the thing is, I want to see the people who want to continuously take rights away from other people. I want to see them have rights too. I don't want them to have the right to superimpose, and I mean super. I don't want them to have the right to impose their beliefs on me, and I'm not trying to impose mine on you. Live and let live. We've forgotten the golden rule. Yep. Do unto others as you will have them do unto you. Absolutely. And Justice says, guess how he grew up old school. Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with some of the old school stuff we needed to throw away. Beating the crap out of kids, and some of that old school stuff we need to throw away. But some of it worked. Some of it worked. But anywho, we talked about Black Lives Matter movement, did we? Well, that was after, yeah, it's after the 90s. So Black Lives Matter was the next time, and kind of the most kind of recent, 2013 to now, that emerged, and it further reshaped the meaning of woke, emphasizing the ongoing fight against racial injustice and police brutality. So this term, it regained prominence during the Black Lives Matter movement, with activists urging others to stay woke to the ongoing struggles against racial injustice. And that's when a lot of politicians said, hey, wait a minute. We don't want them staying woke. Because staying woke with social media, with the, I guess, the combination of social media activism plus the Black Lives Matter movement, made companies and politicians, corporations and politicians, were having a come to Jesus moment. If you were saying that you were an advocate for the social issues that are being brought up on social media and for Black Lives Matter and that movement, not the organization, the movement, those corporations and politicians were kind of in a put up or shut up situation where they had to start making very visible and vocal commitments to what they were going to do to support the movements. And that brought politics into things, right? I can't see. Yeah, Justice said some of it was bad and had to go, but a lot of good also that continues to work, right? David says conduct should be a reflection of our values and ethics. It should. And some people's values and ethics are higher than others. But I believe that there is we can still strive to teach. Each one teach one. But anyway, let's move to this next. So the term became polarized once it started getting political. Critics using it pejoratively to dismiss perceived excessive political correctness or social activism. So basically, they went into political debates and discussions. You would hear these phrases like, this is just another example of the woke agenda, or we can't let political correctness dictate our policies. Critics would then start to argue that the term was co-opted to dismiss or to mock efforts toward greater social justice, framing it as an overreach of liberal or progressive ideals. So political polarization has contributed to what we are seeing now as a divided perception of the term. When you ask 10 different people, you'll probably get 10 different answers. Some people are going to embrace it as a symbol of social awareness and progress. And then others are going to say it's a symbol of what they view as excessive conformity, excessive ideological conformity, where we all have to think the same, or. So that's what they feel like woke is. When conservatives use the term to describe political policies, they are probably referring to initiatives or approaches that they perceive as overly progressive, politically correct, aligned with what they see as left-leaning social justice ideologies, like diversity and inclusion initiatives. Now, we've heard a lot about it here lately. Starting after the Black Lives Matter kind of movements, we started seeing diversity and ethics in initiatives. And what is it? The diversity, ethics, and I forgot what it is. Y'all know what I'm talking about, the DEI. Diversity, ethics, and inclusion. That's what it was. So We started seeing it. We started to see those positions go to the wayside now, though. Remember, we were seeing all these positions being filled because these companies started to say that they were committed to making sure that their company was doing everything it can to level the playing field. And that was what, 4 years ago? And now we're starting to see those people, the DEI directors and the such, are losing their jobs now because they like, we don't have to perform anymore. Same thing with gender pronoun and language usage guidelines. The pronoun thing where you don't get to use your own pronoun. You don't get to choose a pronoun. And if you do, this is in certain places. And if we even hear about you doing this, you'll lose your job, or it could file criminal charges. That's starting to get ugly. Critical race theory is scary to them because the people who are against it see it as an analysis of systemic racism. And then they say, oh, it could be a left-leaning perspective because it can make us as white people, we can make our children hate themselves because of what happened in the past. We shouldn't teach that. This again, if you do not understand or remember your past, you're doomed to repeat it. That is the truth. Has been and always will be. Let me see. Reinhardt said, David, you're absolutely right. How you conduct yourself does show your values. And it's so sad there's so many people now who will overlook anything as long as that person says the same ideology. Right. Clarence said the woke phrase was recontextualized to be something bad by politicians, an instant identifier of what they don't want. Woke, fake news, right? Both phrases now, when I hear them, make my skin crawl. Because fake news to me used to really be fake news. So you know how sometimes people would share stuff from The Onion and they'd be like, oh, we shared this, and they would really be believing that the story is true, and you had to tell them, oh, no, that's The Onion, that's fake news. That's what fake news was. Now we have no idea because the news is so slanted now. So everybody's news is almost fake news because we're pushing an agenda. What happened to Dan Rathers and the Walter Cronkites of the world? Just give me the news straight, no chaser. Let me figure out all the rest of the stuff and who do I assign blame to or whatever. But yeah, woke and fake news make my skin crawl now. Co-opted. Yep. Taken over. The gender pronoun thing is ridiculous. Well, I mean, it's a lot to try to keep up with. Who am I to say it's ridiculous? I'm not affected by it. Now, I don't want to be stuck where I can't say, or I can't speak to anybody because I don't know what to call them. So I'm used to saying, how you doing, sir? How's it going, ma'am? That's natural to me. But some people might get offended by that. I'm not touching that part of this conversation with a 10-foot pole, Now, March says in Canada, one province is banning the use of unconventional pronouns. That's a conversation for another day where I have to sit down and really think about that. They wouldn't teach about the Holocaust in some high schools because it might make the kids feel bad. That's the point. They're supposed to feel bad, right? Fox-type commentators use woke and diversity interchangeably as a negative, right? Right. And if Adira wants to be they, them, let them be them. And it's not hurting me in any way. The only thing that hurts me about it is, again, like I say, I can't just walk up to a person who's presenting one way and call them one thing because I could be wrong. And that could be more offensive than me being all happy up in their face, talking about some, hey, how you doing, sir? That's always been, I've always been in service, in customer service. So it's always been what this person presents as, even if it's clearly a man in a dress. And I'm talking about back in the day, clearly a male in a dress. I'm still going to say you obviously want me to call you a lady. And if you don't want me to call you a lady, I'm calling you what you're presenting, and you'll correct me. So, it's just getting hard. It's getting hard. Clarence says, I don't have a problem with the pronouns, but it's difficult to navigate, and hopefully folks can have a little grace. I've been on panels or even podcast episodes where I've slipped up. I slip up all the time. And it's like with the Adira. I try so hard to make sure I'm on they, them, because I am not trying to, I am trying to be socially conscious. I'm trying to keep my mind moving forward instead of stagnating, because I'm older. But yeah, it does. It gets a little bit difficult, and I do, like I say, people have been very forgiving to me. Very forgiving. Here's this guy. Here's this guy because he's got something to say about woke and wokeism, blasting the rise of woke corporations in politics.
We have seen the rise of big business enforcing a woke standard. It's always been the case that big business wants to get in bed with big government. It's always been the case that big business seeks handouts, seeks subsidies, seeks special benefits at the expense of the little guy, at the expense of the small business. But in the past month, these woke corporations have decided to become the political enforcer for Democrats in Washington. They've made the decision to get in bed, even at the price of spreading disinformation.
So that is, what is his name? Cruz. Ted Cruz is, those are his thoughts on politics and corporations mixing. But we know that politicians and corporations have always mixed. Ted Cruz is hoping that people forget that and only see that the diversification and quote unquote woke policies, which again, we know that word is not as negative as they want you to believe. They'll never say the definition of the word in place of woke because they know that's going to make them sound horrible. But Ted Cruz is hoping his constituents, he's hoping his supporters don't remember that politics and corporations have been in bed with one another. This is nothing new. And corporations are pretty fickle. They're pretty fickle. Corporations will one day be on one thing and then the next day they'll be on the other. Because like I said just a few minutes ago, the corporations have made these promises and things that they chose that they said that they were going to stand on after 2020, after COVID and the Black Lives Matter protests and all of the social activism that continues. My body, my choice, all of these things that the corporations have said that they are going to stay behind. And the honest to God truth is they are in it as long as our attention span. Once we seem to forget, they'll forget.
We have seen the rise
Not
of
what I was trying to do. So here we are. The mainstream adoption of woke by corporations for marketing purposes led to debates about authenticity and performative allyship. And that is what we have seen in a lot, not all, but a lot of corporations. The term became a part of corporate marketing, with some accusing companies of engaging in that performative aspect of things, using woke language without making substantial action. Same thing, diversity and inclusion campaigns. As soon as they think we forgot about it, they start firing these diversity and inclusion officers. They would use social justice messaging on their websites and on their social media pages, and corporate social responsibility. So they set up these initiatives addressing social and environmental issues such as philanthropy, sustainability, and community engagement. It's a part of their image, but it is aimed at a certain subset of people. Like, you see what we're doing over here? Yes, we could do more, but we're doing something, right? So yes, they made public statements. While some people applaud these corporations for using their influence to address societal concerns, others criticize these efforts as opportunistic, performative, especially if the actions don't align with tangible changes in corporate policies or practices. So now you have to, as a corporation and as a consumer, navigate the balance between authentic commitment to these social issues and corporate interests, and what would be in the best interest of the corporation's bottom line. You have to kind of come up with how you want to tightrope this thing. Do you want to say goodbye to Google because you don't think they're doing enough, socially? It's crazy. Oh. Us poor folks in Texas. Yeah, man. Still in between a rock and a hard spot. I'm going to, I see you down here, Marge. I see you. And David, you guys are having a conversation. David, talking about you a dinosaur. We have to evolve. I'm not saying you got to agree, but if you can't say, looks like I said, if you can't help but say ma'am or sir, just drop that. Don't say hi, ma'am, or hello, sir. Just say hello. People will appreciate you not misgendering them, even if you don't mean to be offensive. It can be offensive. Clarence says, Janeway may have given us the best example on addressing someone. Captain, not sir, and only ma'am in a crunch. Yep. Because yes, even this throughout the whole thing, you are absolutely right. She didn't want to be called ma'am or sir. Ma'am in a crunch. Tom Paris still saying, no, I'm gonna call you ma'am. My mama told me call you ma'am. I'm gonna call you ma'am. Clarence said the best hack I've been told is just say their name. If you know their name, just say their name. You're right. If you know the name, say the name. I couldn't imagine being in the casino now, because I used to work casino for a very long time. I can imagine I wouldn't be able to remember it all. But one thing I know for sure is people, if you worked at the casino, you had a name tag on. So I could always look at your name tag. But if you did not work at the casino, and if you were just a guest at the casino, it would be difficult for me to not say ma'am or sir after having said it for 30 years. But I think I'd be up for the challenge. I'm gonna leave it alone, David. I'm gonna let you and Marge hash that out on Discord, and I might be able to add to the conversation there. So all of this leads to media, because that's what we usually discuss here. So what is woke in media? I think Win Grace pretty much said it best in the Discord when he was talking to Marge. He said, in a very broad generalization, is used now to describe in a negative way anytime a show or movie puts in a character, or usually more than one, that isn't the general stereotype. So pretty much anything that isn't a straight white man or a woman behaving in a traditionally female type role. It's basically turned into a safe code word to attack something, without outright sounding like a bigot. And he nailed it. I'm gonna still add to it because, you know, like I said, I'm long-winded. I just talk. Excuse me. So I'm gonna still add to it. But to me, that was a pretty serviceable definition when we start talking about media. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Oh, anyway, let me push on. Okay, so a woke TV, this is me adding on. A woke TV show or entertainer typically incorporates themes that reflect a conscious understanding of societal challenges and a commitment to promoting positive change. For example, a woke TV show might explore storylines that tackle racism, gender inequality, or LGBTQ plus issues. Similarly, a woke entertainer may use their platform to raise awareness about social issues, advocate for change, or contribute to discussions around diversity and inclusion. That, to me, again, does not sound bad, but to some people, it sounds like a threat. And I'm not about to be the one to continuously try to call these people out. But I'm like, that it sounds really crazy to be upset that, again, the playing field is becoming a little more leveled. You start to see more representation. Everybody deserves to see somebody who embodies their ideals, their conduct, their culture, their understanding, their experience. I honestly think I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you know, I'd hate to be a person who felt like something was wrong with that. Excuse me. I think that might be it. I don't know. Yeah, it looks like it's it. That's it. That's all I had. So, I mean, we could talk about woke TV shows. Some people have already said Star Trek. Star Trek is one. It is a show that has been all the time, is whether you use the word woke or not, it was always woke. Nothing wrong with it being woke. Nothing wrong with the people who
over time.
Nothing wrong with the people who wrote the show having those ideals and what it meant for other people, because, you know, again, it's easy to get comfortable with the status quo, the way things have been going. You know, there was once upon a time there was no black people on TV. Now you stumble across a black person every time. And there were people who were uncomfortable with that. And just because they were uncomfortable with it didn't mean that it had to stay the same. Things keep moving, you know, time keeps on ticking, keep on moving. Don't stop. Oh, the sequel trilogy, Star Wars. Yeah. Yep. Disco came out right at the time when the anti-woke moment was taking off. And that is why it catches so much flack. I got some very ugly comments on our last stream that we were talking about the trailer. I didn't even erase the comments. I'm like, you know what? I ain't gonna censor you if you're showing your ignorance by making these comments on this video or on this stream. I'm not saying a word. TOS is very woke, yes. But yeah, so it's a long answer. It's drawn out answer, but it is an answer nonetheless to the question, what is woke? I am so very glad that we've had this conversation, because now if I'm ever asked that again, we just gonna pull this little dissertation out and watch it all over again. I never have to go over it unless, we want to have these types of conversations every now and again. But this one I had to, because this was a friend of the show who had the question, and I know the question was sincere. And I know that they had an idea of what the answer was. They just wanted another perspective. And because of the history of the term woke, I thought that my perspective was important here as well, because there was a history. What else? What else? I don't have anything else. And hopefully we'll catch up with Win Grace later this week. Me and Win Grace was talking in the Discord about the new image that was released about X-Men 97. It has the episode titles and dates and release dates, and it's like an old school TV guide. You have to look at it if you haven't seen it. I truly enjoyed that image. I think it's very, very telling the way they're selling it, and then some of the details on it. Very nice, very nice. So we'll probably have a conversation about that later this week sometime. We get back to watching babies again come tomorrow. So I will be back on grandma duty tomorrow at 3 a.m. So it ain't gonna be tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3 a.m. I'm back to work. But I am off Saturday, and I might be able to put something together. If not, whatever we do is going to be sometime soon. It won't take me 2 weeks again. Oh, Justin said, very good topic discussion and breakdown. Thank you, Tasha. Would you do a video on the Black Panther Party and history? Very interesting topic. I mean, it's going to take me a little bit, because, if I want to do it, I want to be a little thorough. But we can do it for sure, especially for you, Justin. Especially for you. You're a supporter, financial backer of the channel. Of course, I have to. Mara says, this is worthy of a college lecture. Thank you so much for taking the question and topic seriously. Yes. You know what? We avoid, especially in this sphere, because you don't want to alienate nobody. So we avoid having these types of conversations. I get it, but I'm like, sometimes we got to bite the bullet and take a chance and have a conversation that it's deeper than TV. So yeah, I'm glad I was able to do that. And then Justice said, there is so much lesser known history on that era and other allied groups that were started in solidarity. We're going to talk about him. We'll have to put together one heck of a presentation about the Black Panther Party. Especially, it's probably easier to watch the movie. What was the name of the movie? Gosh. I can't remember the name of the movie, y'all. Black Messiah. But anyway, we're going to do it. We're going to talk about it. And thank you for being here, Clarence. Thank you for coming. Better late than never. The history of the word is very pertinent and interesting. Hear all opinions. I got you. I actually saw the word opinion. I didn't even see options until I saw opinions down here. Lord have mercy. So yeah, follow me on social media, all those places. And hang out with me again. I don't really have much else. I don't know how to close out one of these types. So I'll see you next time. Peace.